defective and effective. I almost said ineffective and effective. That doesn't make any sense.
Ineffective and effective.
This whole episode, I kept watching and thinking, this is great. This is great. What record quote am I going to use? Because I got the package tonight.
That's like, I feel like that's the go-to class.
Yeah.
That and what was the quote from season 1 about him being, him being starving. He said something about food all the time.
I'm starving. Something like that, isn't it? Something like that.
I think it is. It's that and the, what about, I like blowing stuff up because I like blowing stuff up.
Yeah.
All right. Record's not the leader of our group,
So-
but he is brute. He's a
Stop.
brute muscle, yeah.
Why don't you stay in the back and follow us, Record? Welcome back to the Star Wars Guys podcast. It's been a little bit.
It
But
is
we're
a minute.
back stronger than ever.
Stronger.
We're back, and we're ready to dive into something we've been very excited about.
Season 3 of the Star Wars Guys podcast.
That's right.
That's right.
Actually,
And that's
I don't know what we are.
No,
I don't know how many
season
seasons we're on
3,
as the podcast.
I don't know.
Bad Batch. We're back in our episode reviews, 3-episode premiere. We're excited to dive into it. As always, we are your hosts, Mike,
Hello there.
myself, Nate, and you know him well, Uncle.
Hello there.
Did you notice Nate didn't give a hello there?
Hello
He
there.
didn't. He skipped that part.
Yeah. It almost feels like
He doesn't
he might
care.
not quite be Nate. He might be clone.
Clone Nate. Oh, we'll dive all into it.
Dr. Hemlock.
His voice is
I
great.
saw between
He was awesome.
someone posted like between Hemlock and Nala say like I'm just gonna be just someone just put me to sleep and then
Hypnotic episodes.
you need to get away, Omega. Well, that would be a grave mistake because of course we just released the hounds. Wake up.
I love it. We got Anakin Skywalker in the chat. Says
Whoa,
Nice.
that's a big
Hello
one.
there.
Hot take.
That's
Anakin.
in the world of Star Wars. That's pretty big.
That's
That is.
big, yeah.
Anakin. Yes.
Hi,
we're
Master. I just
excited.
forgot that I love doing Hayden Christensen.
He does.
I like doing a little bit
No,
of
it's his favorite.
older-
It's his favorite. Is.
Older Hayden.
Hello, Anaheim. Hello, Anaheim. Very happy to be back in Star Wars, and yeah, I'll probably think of more quotes as the episode goes on.
Yeah.
But yeah, Bad Batch 3-episode premiere. Let's do it. Let's dive into it. What we usually start with like overall thoughts.
Yeah, I love how clunky this feels so far. We're getting our rhythm back. I like that we even have to remind us like, well, we usually do this.
What do we
Like,
talk about now?
This is good.
I know.
True.
It's been a minute.
It'll be back. It'll be
Yeah.
back.
Yeah, I'm waiting for the
I'm
Star Wars
waiting.
guys to get it together.
I might
Let's remember what they do.
I'm waiting. They're my family. What if people out there like really loved this podcast so much that they've just been sitting there like, are they gonna do it this week? Aw.
Nate
What's-
skipped the
where?
hello there.
That's just us. Are we going to do it
Hello
this
there.
week?
People are taking bets. Is Nate can do hello?
we didn't
take
do
hello
it.
there. Take a drink. No, it's just,
It's the Star Wars Guys podcast drinking game.
drinking game. He didn't say it. I want a drink.
How often do they bring up Wizard of Oz?
The other guy's like, I bet he's gonna bring up Last Jedi. Oh, we will somehow, even though it doesn't. We don't have to on this one. That'd be kind of forcing it, but I can find.
No,
a way.
it'll fit.
might.
It'll get
Yeah,
there.
it'll fit.
We'll get there.
That'll be good.
Yeah.
It's good.
But we ready
Yeah.
to talk about it? 3 episodes.
3 episodes.
First of all, how do we like having the multi-episode? They started doing this a little bit more on.
even the
Ahsoka
live
had a
action
couple.
stuff they've done it. Yeah.
I think it's definitely. Well, having watched the 3 episodes, it feels a lot better ending the premiere after episode 3 than episode 2.
Yes.
Yeah.
Especially
for
because
sure.
1 and 3 feel almost like a giant episode
Mhm.
Yeah.
connected to each other. And 2 is great because we get to check in with the Bad Batch
Yeah.
and go on,
Yep.
an adventure and some slither vines and a lot of stuff that's going
Yeah.
on there. But if they were to just do the 1, I mean they had. I mean, we'll just say it. They had to get Palpatine in the.
Yeah.
When we know in the trailer that he's going to be in it, getting him in the 3-episode
In the
premiere,
first-
Yeah.
Yeah.
having the Shadows of Tantus episode, which is one of my favorites of all the Bad Batch episodes we've gotten,
hmm
I
good.
thought it was a good decision to have all 3. Yeah.
It was.
And that story arc, that 3-episode story arc that we see through Clone Wars and
Yes.
Rebels and
Yep.
even Bad Batch helps us
Yeah.
to get
Yeah.
to a spot.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I like it
Sometimes
better.
it's to get through a 3-episode droid arc.
Yes.
which
Our
our
favorite.
favorite. Of this.
Which,
They're
yeah.
always the best.
No, I do think it was good because if they just did 2 episodes, it would have felt like which is great going over to Hunter and Wrecker, but we
Right.
would have not made our way back to.
Back to yeah.
Because even though I love the stuff with Hunter and Wrecker when 3rd episode started,
Oh, I was ready.
and it
to
was
get
back with Omega, I was like, okay, good, because I want to dive into this story
I know.
and see where
I'll
this
be
is
honest.
going.
When I saw the title that said Shadows of Tantos, I was like, I can tell this is gonna be one of the best episodes they've had.
Yeah.
Like, it's first of all, this premiere in general was very dark.
Mhm.
In like in a good way. Like, I think that the way that the last season ended, I think most people would say that, you know, early in season 2, there were a lot of great episodes throughout, and then you can kind of tell when it started pedal to the metal, like not just a bunch of like side missions or anything, like stuff's really
Picking
happening.
up the main
Mhm.
story.
Yeah.
maybe.
And I love seeing this, which we thought based on kind of the way last season ended, that it wouldn't be like, okay, we're going to spend a ton of time with Sid, or we're going to do all those things.
Yeah.
This
Right.
is like, Omega's gone, we got to go get her.
We're on.
And were we expected for her being there that long? I mean, if you're
Yeah.
talking about
The-
specifics, her being there
yeah.
and aging and
I
changing
think the
the
only
haircut
reason
and-
Right.
I suspected her being there was because the trailer shows her with like that kind of haircut.
True.
So
Different hair.
I just
Mhm.
assumed, I'm like, oh wow, she's gone for a little while.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know the exact
Yeah.
time frame, but they show her markings, and then when they cut back, and the first time we see her with the change of the
Yeah.
hairstyle, you see it's just the whole
It
wall.
was
marked up.
125 days. We
That's what I
just
thought it was.
paused it and counted it.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
just over 4 months.
4 months. Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
It's a long time to be gone from
Family.
your brothers. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what accent that was. I just your brothers.
Your brothers.
Oh, that's a long time to be gone from your brothers. I don't know. That's not even
Yeah,
close to. I figured I'd just lean into a bad.
Yeah,
different,
just go for it.
completely different.
Different.
accent.
Go with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
But yeah, overall thoughts on the premiere?
I loved it. I love that we're picking up right where we left off, and we're just all in on. Like, this feels like a continuation of where we left off.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
like exactly like I feel like the last season ended at the height of where the Bad Batch and Omega's importance was going,
Mhm.
without giving us too much information. And then the 3-episode premiere, particular episode 3, is like, boom, here it is. Here's the information. Now we're rolling
Yeah.
with it. So definitely got me excited. I mean, I love Bad Batch, and we're off to a great start. I'm excited to see where it goes. Her importance with everything.
I was again shaking my head like we're watching this animation laying down some heavy
Oh yeah.
Oh, I know.
heavy canon.
Huge
Like,
Yes.
cannon.
just like this is big. It's really cool.
And this connected
saw
to
it last-
Mandalorian. This
Mandalorian,
connected, like,
exactly.
directly to Mandalorian.
Even
We're seeing
just-
these connecting up to all
Oh,
these.
yeah.
It's like this is part of the whole
Awesome.
thing.
Even just like the emotion behind the story within, but let's just say all 3 of them, but
Yeah.
episode, like Omega's part of the story so far of her being trapped, and then panning at the end of her episode of just panning down to her doll, like
Mhm.
that she's
Yeah.
thinking. I'm like, this is an animated show,
I know.
and it's so great, so good.
I absolutely loved it too.
Yeah.
I thought that it's like they hit the ground running, where it was like, okay, this is the final season. We're not wasting time.
Mhm.
We're getting right after it. We're going to. I mean, I rewatched to get ready for this. This week I rewatched season 2.
Yep.
And there are so many great little, like, bring in different characters. You feel the importance as season 2 is ending. I mean, you do even before then. But season 2 is ending, and you're seeing, them have these secure meetings on Tantus, and it's like, oh, Krennic's there, and Tarkin's there, and Hemlock's there,
yeah,
and they're all talking about the plans moving forward, and it's of nothing is of greater importance to securing the future of the Empire.
Right.
I think is what Palpatine says, and there's a number of questions I have when I'm watching this, and we'll get into specifics. But one, Hemlock's becoming extremely powerful,
yeah.
and we don't see him.
We don't see him
I know.
anymore.
him we don't see him in live action. We don't see him later on, and he has quickly risen up, the ranks where he's. I mean, we know that he got initially expelled from what was it from? I guess from the academy or whatever for a long time. I don't know if it was the academy or the Imperial something for doing his experiments
Science,
before.
yeah.
Yeah.
And they talked about how
The rest of
a lot of them were unorthodox, and then I love that Palpatine in this
even says the rest of the Empire.
there's some
does
even
not have the
within
same vision.
our own ranks. Like might
Yeah.
might find 'cause he's
Unnatural.
unnatural. But Palpatine's
Yeah.
like, but I love
That's what I
unnatural. This
want.
is great.
Yeah.
I actually avoid natural.
And then Dr. Hemlock says, "Great, I want to be the leader of this in due time." Palpatine's like, "Chill out, or I'll kill you."
Yeah, he did.
But it's also such an interesting thing. I love that we are getting all of this info of this. One of the biggest questions we've had that has been consistent, that's been a big question that we've been waiting for answers for is, how did Palpatine return? Or like, we've gotten some of the answers because they talk about it in The Rise of Skywalker, and they talk about it in the novelization. They talk about it in Shadows of the Sith. There's these different things that are going on Exegol. But we don't get to see a lot of the planning that went into it. And as guys who like the details and really like seeing like, I love hearing the plan of this many years in advance. Like, that's what I kept thinking about while watching this episode is, okay, timeline-wise, we've seen them talk about Project Necromancer in The Mandalorian. And they're all talking about it with the different Imperial admirals that are still around, and Moff Gideon's, they're talking about it, and I'm like, oh, that's like 30 years after this moment.
Yeah.
So this does not work right away. I mean, they're
still trying to get it.
They're still trying to get it, and it's both cool to know what comes after this, and then also think, how do we get there? Because somehow this connects to not just the creation of, the preservation of Palpatine, creation of Palpatine clones. Clearly, this somehow leads to the Snoke stuff that's going on. This leads to early seasons of Mandalorian when they're talking about what's the importance of Grogu.
Yeah.
What are they using him for? To think that Grogu and Omega are both woven into this same story.
I know.
That's something that when Bad Batch first started, I didn't think like, oh, I bet that Grogu and Omega are connected. But it's like they're both children.
It wasn't in our takes. We didn't have that.
We didn't. Oh, she kind of looks like she looks like Yoda.
We were on the Boba Fett path, Alpha Omega.
True.
So I mean, I will go on and on about the details, but I just love overall how much it's connecting to everything, and
some of it is
the
stuff
importance.
that we
It's
speculated.
very important.
Some of it's stuff that because we speculated from the beginning. Like, okay, we've seen now the cloning facilities and stuff that they've gone to in Mando.
Yep.
And
with vats of creatures
we were
inside.
we were talking about
so
that we're trying to get a force sensitive clone. That was kind of the idea. We're working
towards the Palpatine contingencies where we've got basically the Palpatine clone and all that stuff that he never really inevitably makes perfect come time of Rise of Skywalker, but enough for him to survive.
And then Mando throws the wrinkle in it that Moff Gideon's like, yeah, but also I'm cloning myself. So I love
it's like
that
plot twist.
Project Necromancer is not how do we preserve Moff Gideon. It's like the Emperor and all his bigger purposes. And Moff Gideon's like, I hear you, but like that's a good idea. Palpatine's doing
I might do the same thing.
He's like, I might go do that too.
Yeah, exactly. Which is a whole nother thing to see, like even within the Imperial remnants, that there's still those after their own power. As well.
Oh yeah,
I think Nate for 3 years on this podcast has said it always comes back to.
I've been saying it forever. It all comes back to cloning.
Been saying it.
Secret's only the Sith knew.
Secrets only we all knew. Apparently,
that's what I learned from.
It's not a secret to anybody.
Secrets only the Sith knew. That's what I learned from Charlie from Lost.
That's right.
That's true. Yeah.
Where
also known as Mary.
Mary.
Yes. But it all comes back to cloning. And I think, it's interesting to see. Obviously, Omega has such a big role in this with her being, with her blood sample being the only one that's like that will take that's valid for their purposes. But it'll be interesting to see what the level of that either continues to be. Like, do they get to that point, and that's part of what starts this chain reaction for the Project Necromancer moving forward?
Yeah.
Or do they end up succeeding and she does not end up becoming a full part of that? And then they realize now come Mando, that's why they're looking for another source like Grogu still, and it's 30 years later, and they're still
That
trying
makes
to
sense.
they know it's possible now because they saw the positive result,
Mhm.
but now it's like, we know it's possible, but she also got away, so now we're trying to figure out
Yeah.
how to replicate it. We'll see, but-
Or could it be that Grogu was Gideon's asset?
Could be.
yeah,
Thought about that.
Yeah,
Yeah, because that definitely is when they're
True.
talking about
That's
Project
that's
Necromancer
his-
in the big group setting.
Yeah.
They're not like, at least to
Oh,
my
yeah, it
knowledge,
worked.
they don't mention either. Like, have you located the asset? I don't think they don't, as a big group, they don't talk about
No.
Grogu
No.
because they talk about
Yeah.
the preservation of the Empire and the new wave and
yeah,
and Thrawn coming back and that type of, and they talk about Project Necromancer and name drop that exact project in Mando's first time
Yeah.
we heard it.
yeah.
But it sounds like that is the big plan, and definitely Gideon's thing with Grogu feels outside of it.
Yeah.
It also makes me wonder how much, because like we obviously see that like the council of the remnants, Imperial remnants, talking openly about that. But it does make me wonder how much, especially come time for Mando, how much of the Empire knows about the contingency plan.
Exactly.
Because at that point,
'Cause it's not about-
at that point they're all talking about it,
Mhm.
Yeah.
and they even have a council in towards the end of season 2.
Yeah.
In Bad Batch, but yeah, but then you hear the Emperor in this last episode
Yeah.
3, talking about how this needs to be kept secret. You're
Mhm.
staying here, like stay secluded, stay hidden, all this stuff, which gives reason as to why we don't see him in the live action
Yeah.
movies and things. But
The Emperor would not want an army of moths. He would want an
No.
army of
yeah,
No.
himself.
Well,
Yeah.
I would have loved. I
So,
know it's
yeah,
it's
yeah.
like not wouldn't it can't happen at this point. But if there was a Star Wars, what if what if this happened and seeing
there's rumors.
but I'm saying what can't happen in our current canon is seeing the Emperor still out there on Exegol, whatever version of him there is, finding out about Moff Gideon's plans.
Oh yeah.
Being like, you plagiarized. You just stole my idea, and then just like,
You're
having to-
standing on my achievement.
Yeah,
careful not to choke on your lack of mustache, Moff Gideon. Remember how that was a big thing of like, this Moff has a mustache, Moff Gideon has a mustache, this one doesn't have a mustache. Is he a clone? That was the big thing.
I
It was
know.
like,
Yeah.
and then there was whole vats of clones.
Right.
yeah,
I love when we're talking about this because I've had the same exact thoughts of like, okay, so she gets away at the end of this. Hemlock's like, okay, let her go. As far as we don't want to kill her, we don't want to shoot them down. Let her go. It's a minor setback because now we know that exactly what we thought was possible is out there, and it's her. So now let her go, and now we'll spend time tracking her, trying to get her.
have all of the Imperial resources at my hand.
What is exciting is we're 3 episodes in. What's the rest of the
Right.
season going to be like?
I
Because
know.
if this is the first 3 episodes, I was thinking even at the end of that, I was
They
like,
gotta
I would
meet up
read a
with
whole. I
Hunter.
would have read a whole book, like talking about like Shadows
That
of
is-
the
that would
Sith.
be
Like
the
that
story.
felt like
Yeah.
that was a great story. Like just in those 3 and like
I
hearing
know.
all that.
Mm-hmm.
Learning, getting like if I was reading a novel and I get to a chapter where Palpatine shows up on Tantus and they're talking about cloning and here's it's so exciting seeing all these things tied together. But now I'm really excited to go, okay, what's the next the final 13 episodes if they're doing 16 again.
Yep.
Final 13 episodes going to be like, and where does this end up for Omega? Where does this end up
Yeah.
for? Like, what is, because I assume, we'll see what happens. But if she survives throughout the whole 13, Hemlock maybe doesn't. Like, I'm trying to think of what is the version of this where she's just
Yeah.
not on the run for the rest of her life.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like
From
how
the
does it
Empire.
end?
Because now they know without
Right.
a shadow of a doubt that she can help
Yeah.
their
Like,
cause.
how does it end without her just always being hunted for?
Yeah, with all the Emperor's resources too. I mean, it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see where it's going, and then also I love that Hemlock he's risen up the ranks. He's got all these resources at his disposal, and then when he's like feeling confident and he says something, the Emperor's basically easy. Like to us, it's even like a reminder of like the Emperor could just be like, okay, we got all the info. You are the scientist. You've done all this, but also like I'm the Emperor. I don't have unlimited patience even for the people that I think are the best suited for their roles. If you fail me,
if you're not doing it, then we're
then
gonna.
you're out.
They almost did the exact line of the Emperor is not as forgiving as I am.
Yeah, he did.
So I'm interested to see if Hemlock's days are numbered by the end of the season. Although he's a great character, and this is the end of the. We'll see.
Yeah, it makes me wonder. Well, one with Exegol and everything that's going, we know that there's a whole basically organization that continues in the shadows.
Mm-hmm.
You got those are the
but we don't
cultists,
necessarily know
the acolytes.
how many of them are still involved at that point. We know the Emperor's obviously involved, but we don't know how many of his remnants are still involved. So, but we know there are people involved. So is it Hemlock, or is he part of that? Is
part
it
of his final order? He's got that whole separate organization going on.
Is he part of that that's just been in the shadows this whole time that he's been involved with? Or, yeah, I don't know. We still have all of Thrawn's stuff. Like, there's just a lot that's... And the remnants knowing of Thrawn in his return. There's just so much still that's going on. But.
Quick side note before I forget, but I love that in that meeting in Mando where they're talking about Project Necromancer, I saw someone point this out. I was like, I love that... one of the admirals is just like, Thrawn's return is imminent. And I'm like, how do you know this? Like, have you been talking to him across the other galaxy? Like, did one of the Night Sisters
How can
tell
you possibly
know?
know?
Because obviously, Morgan Elsbeth's like, he's coming. And I was like, I wonder if it's some Night Sister magic speaking to Morgan Elsbeth or something. Because remember, she's heard like voices and stuff. She's like, I've heard Thrawn calling out. And people are like, I don't know if that's Thrawn. It's Thrawn related.
From the sisters and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
The sisters. But that's a side note. But
one thing I found interesting is that Nala Sue knew before.
Yeah,
that
she
if
immediately
they
knew.
tested it, that she would.
Oh,
there's
really
something in there.
That's the thing. I think
that's
a good point.
It was either intentional that they created her that way.
Yeah.
Or it was something they knew.
She said,
I think
they're going to test your blood. You have to go now.
Yeah. It almost seemed like to me this was something that she was doing on her own. Like on Camino.
Yeah.
Something happened where she had either experimented herself or because even on Camino, she still seemed to be the only one to know that she was special.
Yeah.
Because she was her right hand, she was her assistant even then.
Mm-hmm.
And she was always worried when they were getting off Camino, she was worried about like Omega's safety and knowing. So she's known obviously the whole time. And it did, like, that was a good point because it made me wonder, like, okay, we knew that she knew Omega was special some way because she always cared about her safety. We thought we just cared
like a daughter, but it's more than that.
It's more than that, and it also seems like, like you're saying, like, I don't know. It made me wonder if she had already experimented in this way, and that's where Omega came from, or if it was an accident, but she just knew, and so she's like, I realized what I've done. Like, here's Omega, here's like this clone that's created this thing, and if someone else finds out about this, if the Empire actually finds out about this, it could be catastrophic. Yeah. So she's like, you gotta run, you gotta get out of here.
Do you think they're gonna know that Nala Sue knew? Because if Hemlock finds out that Nala Sue knew this already, then he's like, well, let's do this again.
Yeah.
He definitely.
How'd you do it? Yeah, how'd you do it?
Do another one just
he
like
definitely
her.
suspects that she's the one who helped her
escape.
Go. So that,
but does he know that
together? Like, okay,
why would you help her?
Why did you?
Why
help
now?
Her?
Why is it so important?
Why did you know?
Yeah,
it's going to be. And I'm also wondering, are they going to be able to use Nala Sue as leverage for Omega? I don't know if the connection is as strong the other way.
If it's as strong, it doesn't seem to be, but
I don't think so. But
yeah. There's a lot to dive into. I'm excited. I'm also looking forward to, because even watching the second episode, and the batch has dwindled down to Hunter and Wrecker.
Yeah,
and I'm watching that episode like, are we missing? I'm like, is there?
Yeah.
I'm like, where is? And then I'm like, okay, thinking it through, I'm like, okay, Crosshairs, obviously he's been out of the group, but he's been a part of the
Mm-hmm.
story. Obviously Tech
Mhm.
is gone, and I'm like, Echo is left
Yeah.
and joined Rex. So I'm like, there really is only 2 of the Bad Batch left. But it'll be cool to see Omega and Crosshair after all this time. Crosshair
I know.
come back to the light side
That was so good.
and
Well, and
join
Hannah-
and kind of feel like the Bad Batch group again.
Hannah, my daughter's like, "Do you think Tech's really dead?" I was like, "I do.
Yeah.
I do."
I know that's been a ton. There's been a ton of speculation about Tech
Because
still
no one's ever
being
really
alive.
gone. They've conditioned us to think,
They have,
Eh. but
but I think
he
so.
is.
feels like it is.
I think
Yeah.
so.
It was so good to see. We can talk about this. See the redemption Crosshair
Oh yeah.
and Omega doing her thing, which is always seeing the good.
Yes.
Always seeing, not giving up on people, and
Yeah,
What are you doing?
and it brought him around. I mean,
I
it's-
love
his
she was
grasp.
right.
it
Yeah.
did.
Yeah.
Every time he's. I
What are you
saw
doing
Alex
here?
Damon of Star Wars Explained had a great.
I
little
deserve
thing
to
talking
be
about,
here. When he said that, I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, dude.
Yeah.
I saw Star Wars Explained had a great video where he was talking about Crosshair, and what's interesting is he might, of anyone, well, obviously he's done these horrible things, betrayed his brothers, did these things where he feels like he deserves to be there. He also maybe feels like he, with his modification, has the toughest pathway forward, where Wrecker's big and strong. That helps in everyday life.
Mhm.
Like, oh, I can help do this. I can help do that. Hunter's tracking, sensible, like all that type of stuff. His good instincts help keep Omega safe. Help can just help with what they're doing, whatever they're doing post being a soldier.
Yeah.
Being a sharpshooter, he's like, unless I
Oh,
have
I know.
unless I have a gun,
Unless
in my
I'm
hand,
sharpshooting.
unless I'm sharpshooting, there's not a ton.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
And
I
on
can
top
be a
of that,
good
he's
friend.
got the
I'm
shakes.
still. He's got
Mhm.
he's developed a tremor in his hand.
Yeah.
Which means his one thing you can't do is
exactly.
have
So
a tremor
it's-
when you're shooting.
he's going through he's going through a big transformation.
He's going through like refinding his identity and place and
Yeah.
everything of
Mhm.
like, this is who I've been, a soldier who just followed orders for so long. Now that's been flipped upside down. And on top of that, the other thing that I have been good at within that
losing.
is just my shot. And now
Mhm.
that's going, so like, what can I do?
Mhm.
And
and bringing it back to Omega, I love the parallel of her coming to the cage, feeding the beast who snaps at her, and she's like, "Hey," and like is persistent, trying to help the
It's the
animal.
same thing with Crosshair.
And then
yeah,
Crosshair comes,
exactly.
I'm just a beast too, and I talk like this.
Right.
But the same thing.
Crosshair
Get
snaps
outta
And then
here.
he's bitter.
Fighters.
He's like,
He
oh,
snaps
no.
at her. Crosshair, gnawing on her.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
You want some chicken nuggets?
They flip roles. They come back, and the
He's
beast,
putting medicine
the beast
on his
is,
arm.
is adjusting his scope and is grabbing a
Crosshair's got a scratch on his arm.
Oh my gosh, he's lost it.
Crosshair's got a scrape on his arm.
Little
That's
red
great.
controller.
See, it's not so bad.
Get away.
But I love
Run away.
she is persistent and is like, hey, don't snap at me. I'm trying to help you. And
Yeah.
she's like, I'm not gonna leave you. I'm gonna. And I love the Hemlock's like, oh, if you've weakened this animal, you just condemned it to death. Now it's gonna die out there. And she's like, you were gonna kill it here. At least it deserves a chance.
Yes, and
like,
apparently
Yeah.
not.
yeah, apparently
Yeah, and
it gets
apparently
out there and
it's out there.
howls and it's gonna save our
Saves 'em.
lives.
Yeah.
So I just all the stuff with Omega is great. I think that so curious to see what happens with Emery.
I know.
Also,
Because she's coming around a little bit with
She
keeping.
gave-
She didn't.
she gave the toy back.
Yeah, she didn't terminate the toy and gave it back. And
It's-
Omega has that way.
yeah,
She brings out the best in people. That's
Mhm.
her thing.
Yeah.
If you want to know what the Bad Batch specialties are, I think that's Omega's thing. She's able to bring out the good in everybody
Yeah.
somehow.
Mm-hmm.
She
Maybe
is
not
the
everybody.
definition of like
Well, most people.
optimistic.
Yeah.
And hopeful and
Yeah. Could be part of being a kid, but maybe that's just her too.
She brings out
Yeah.
the best in everybody. Dr. Hemlock's
Except for Hemlock.
Dr. Hemlock's heart
That's what I
grew 3
said.
sizes that day.
That's what I said almost everybody.
And all the locks.
Hemlock's
down
like,
in
we need to
Hemlock.
continue cloning her because I just need more of this joy. filled
Yeah.
over."
I love your joy.
And all the clones down in Tantus, the tall and the small.
The tall and the small. Wow.
No,
Hand in
it's
hand and start singing.
she has such an effect on everyone. And Emery is so interesting because we're getting, again, with this show and similar with Clone Wars, we get all of these different versions of clones. Until this show, to my knowledge, I don't remember female clones. I don't remember that on Clone Wars. But it's not just Omega. We have Emery, and Emery's like, I'm your sister. And it's really interesting. I've wondered, because going
went
back
through
to
the growth process, apparently.
and
Yeah.
going through season 2,
Accelerated.
when my initial take on Emery was she's there, she's with them, but she's not with them. She's with them, and I don't think she's like bad. I think she's definitely still coming around, but I am wondering if she is a little bit more on the side of like good soldiers follow orders, like that.
She
That
is that
she's
way.
in that from the
Yeah.
science thing of like she's not like initially I would have guessed
She's been
and
trained
wrongly.
to just,
yeah.
this is what she does.
I don't think that she's like, oh, Hemlock's super evil and this is what's going on, and of course I'm gonna help you, but it's more like I'm helping you and learning as we're going, and like, well, I'm just following orders. This is what I'm doing, and then all of a sudden she sees something, and like she's like, well, I feel his connection to Omega. I feel his connection to Crosshair. I'm gonna try to help him in the way that I can, but I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna be the one right now. At least I'm not the one who's trying to get you out of here.
Yeah, help them escape.
But more of like, I'm gonna try to keep you alive as best I can.
Yeah.
But there's no escape. Like, so I think she tells that, like, there is no escape. Initially, she's like, "There's no escape," but but listen,
But we've got work to do.
She tells both of them, like, "Listen, go back to your rooms.
You're not thinking
I'll
clearly,
make sure no one
basically.
knows this
Yeah.
ever happened." And we like believe her. I think that she's not gonna like run to
Yeah.
the doctor and be
Yeah.
like, "Go get
No.
them." But she's like, "Listen, you don't know what you're doing. You got to go back." So it's interesting to see her development, because I feel like she's kind of like waking up a little bit, as far as like she's starting to toe the line a little bit of or you know, she's starting to cross the line a little bit of not exactly following protocol.
And I think what Omega maybe told her too is going to continue to nudge her with questioning and thinking more for herself about whatever, like what's actually going on and like her role and everything, because she even mentions like, we're not meant to just, like, I was trapped on Camino for all that time. I'm not going to stay here as a prisoner as well. So and reminding her that they're in the same thing.
And you're not free either.
And then also even saying like, you know, go back to your room, and Crosshair's like, it's a cell. Like, that's not a room, it's a prison cell. And then her maybe realizing, like, Emery might be realizing some of that too. Like, yeah, I'm not locked up like the other clones here,
But I can't do what I
but
want.
I still can't. I'm not free. I'm still slaving away every day doing the same thing.
That's right.
And yeah, and he even mentions like we have to when Hemlock comes back and talks, like, we need to get their prisoners. He even calls them that, like, we got to get them back because
That's right.
they broke out. And it made me think when he said that, like, Emery might be thinking, oh, well, like, he does see all of us that way.
Yeah.
Even though we're within this circle, we're not calling each
Pretending.
other that. We're pretending,
Yeah.
but he sees everybody that way. Everyone's just doing
Back to
his thing.
themselves. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's something that I thought of in this episode that could be just a huge stretch, but I've never actually even given it any consideration until, okay, we're here. They're talking about when they're talking Project Necromancer, and they're walking back with the Emperor, and they're getting to the actual, like, what we think are probably like the chambers that have the different specimens in there that they said clearly are not clones that they've been testing on, or like that they're not the clone soldiers that they've been testing them on. I was like, oh, are they gonna pan and show us? Is it gonna be Snoke? Is it gonna be Palpatine? Is it gonna be and show us what it is?
They opened up with the light like a bacta tank almost, but didn't show anything.
And what was interesting though is in that moment where I'm like, oh yeah, Snoke and this that, and then I'm looking at Kaminoans. I'm like, wait a second. Not that Snoke is a Kaminoan, because they don't look the same. But what's funny is he actually probably looks the closest to a Kaminoan than any other creature. than any other creature as
Mhm.
far as the height,
Yep.
the long neck. Now he's deformed, and like that's why he doesn't have
That's
the perfect
that's
little
the Palpatine in him.
the perfect little bean head like all the other Kaminoans.
Mhm.
But like he's like the same height. He is like skinny neck, just deformed
long
head.
arms,
and I was
long limbs.
more than like just a regular clone gone wrong. This actually feels like not saying that like this ends with them you know pushing one of the the Kaminoans into the thing like, oh, you're not gonna help us. Omega's we lost Omega. Well, then you're getting here. Oh my goodness! And just goes in. And she becomes Snoke. But it actually, the size profile I think actually fits the most of any of the other. That would be funny if she became Snoke because she's so like unassuming and like, get out of here.
I can't.
And then she comes out and she's Andy Serkis and like, Andy
Yeah,
Serkis
it'd be-
is Snoke.
Remember
He's so
when
cruel.
Crosshair was in the Snoke discussion?
It was.
Yeah,
I think we
I don't
settled-
think he's
hopefully
Snoke.
settled that.
yeah.
Eventually, we're just gonna stop guessing who Snoke is because we know he's a. But what's great is they've actually reopened the Snoke discussion because
They have.
we all know the answer is Snoke's a clone.
He's
but
a
now
clone?
it's a clone of what?
Which? How?
Like,
Which one?
what's the-
yeah.
what's
who?
the
Was it the
combination.
Palpatine clone gone wrong? Was it Palpatine with this gone wrong? Is it
Is it not gone wrong?
Mo-
Is it Palpatine's
gone
just,
very right? Because the other Snokes look just
Well,
like
we know
him
there's
in in the vats.
Well,
Right.
we know there was Palpatine clones too. So
Yeah.
like he intentionally had Palpatine clones that were working, so, at least to some extent, while still making Snoke clones.
Yeah.
So it's like
That's the thing.
he was
Gra-
using
my-
Snoke as a symbol.
I prefer
basically.
grape Snoke clones
Great.
as opposed to like cherry or rainbow. I love grape Snoke clones.
I prefer
On a
Kirbu.
hot-
I
so
prefer
hot-
Kirbu
hot-
clones.
clones.
You said Snoke clones. I was like,
Snoke
I
clones.
love
Those
Snoke
Snoke clones.
clones.
Oh
They
yeah.
are.
Shaved ice.
Shaved
Snoke
ice
clones.
Snoke clones.
That's hilarious. No, it also makes me wonder. You can't with all this stuff because the way that stories, especially in Star Wars, has a history of George Lucas going back to Empire Strikes Back. Clearly made decisions in Empire that he didn't, or clearly made decisions in Return of the Jedi. They're like, okay, I didn't plan out Luke and Leia being brother and sister
Yeah,
when
right.
I wrote the kissing scene in Empire Strikes Back. Obviously, it looks a little awkward after Return of the Jedi. But you do wonder, like, okay, if I actually were to get super, like, into the weeds and be like, this was Palpatine's exact plan, the timeline of how he gets from here to Sith Eternal Palpatine on Exegol with all the Sith cultists and everybody, and Snoke is there in between. We know all this cloning stuff. You wonder, like, so is Palpatine Project Necromancer? We're going to clone me. And they just do all these clones.
Mhm.
And then eventually they're like, that's tough. Let's clone someone else.
Let's try and-
let's
let's try
do,
that
I'll
guy."
control him like a puppet.
Yeah.
And then they do that, and then Snoke is doing all the stuff, and they're like, okay. And then he dies. They're like, back to me, clone me again. Like, because at some point, clearly, like, there is a decision when he's like, I made Snoke. There's a decision of, like, because I think they're failing at the Palpatine, and they talk about this in The Rise of Skywalker, that Palpatine's, like, essence is so powerful that it was actually just, like, it was eating up and just destroying and rotting the actual clone bodies that they were having. Like, it could not even contain his, like, spirit.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's like so literally rotten and evil and powerful. That it's interesting of, like, I'm trying to think of what I would like to be in the room of hearing. I wouldn't want to be in the room. Palpatine would probably kill me. But I'd like to hear a fly on the wall. We'll go with that. A fly on the wall of the thinking of, like, okay, I need these contingency plans. Clone me, clone me, clone me. Oh, we're kind of failing. Pivot, Kaminoan. Okay, let's clone them. We'll deform them. We'll try something here.
Deform 'em.
We'll deform 'em.
Formal.
But also
They're gonna
make them
be-
look like me a little bit.
like
We're gonna have them also. We're gonna wait. Don't clone them yet. We're waiting for Hux and these other guys to really take over this. Oh, they got something called the First Order. Go, 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 go! Take the First Order. I love that Snoke didn't have
Yeah.
to build the First Order too. Like the First Order is clearly
Yeah.
a result of Imperial remnants and admirals and people who are, like, doing the dirty work and doing all the groundwork of, like, we've survived
Getting
the
an
fall of the
organization.
empire.
Yeah.
We are corrupting the different planets. We're building this. We're recruiting. We're getting more stormtroopers. We make the stormtroopers' outfits a little bit different. We keep going. That's just a side note. They keep going, and they oppress, and then Palpatine's like, go, it's your cue, and he just pushed Snoke out there on the stage, and they're like, who are you?
He's like, oh,
And
I'm
he's
your
like,
ruler.
Okay.
Like, that is now all mine. And then he just like
Yeah.
now he just takes over.
He's
He
in.
gets his knight's bathrobe. He's sitting there, and then
He's
all of
in.
a sudden, he's
It seems
And
like
then he's out.
Palpatine was
then he's
almost
out.
like
He's out.
like come time for Rise of Skywalker, or even come time for Palpatine's death at Return of the Jedi,
Mm-hmm.
when he essentially had to lash on to another
Yeah.
another
Clone
another
Palpatine's
clone
death.
Palpatine.
Clone Palpatine's death.
Right? Yeah.
Maybe that's not it.
That's the moment when he has to prolong his life by latching on to another clone of himself.
Mm-hmm.
But at that time, the perfect clone match wasn't established yet. So it's like Snoke becomes this figure to be utilized while Palpatine's still working on perfecting himself
Mm-hmm.
on Exegol and in the shadows, which leads all the way up to Rise of Skywalker. So it does make you wonder, like, how far do they get along in this process before? Because they don't perfect it, or else he would have just lashed on and been another clone of himself and been fine from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't ever perfect it.
No.
But it does make you wonder, how far do they get in this to where it's successful enough for him to have clones of himself, but they're not perfect, which is the reason I bring that up is because in this episode, their big thing is the M count being consistent and not dropping off from a clone
Yeah.
from the next clone.
Mm-hmm.
So not getting any weaker, which essentially in the Rise of Skywalker they were. Palpatine's M count when he goes to a clone of himself is weaker. He's not the same. So do they actually get to a point of succeeding in this, or do they not? Like,
Yeah.
do they ever get that part of Omega's, like, what they're really striving for, or is it never? It's never like perfected, at least, because it doesn't end up happening that way.
Yeah. If it ever was perfected, there would
be a ton of Palpatines
be
that
all
would have been
over.
perfect.
So I think we got.
So it's like
They
she's
they
out
still
here,
were
but
doing it, but it was
they're still
not.
trying to do it, but they never really
never
get to where
quite
it's
got it to work right.
Omega's like
And so-
M count doesn't drop off.
And so,
Yeah.
correct me if I'm wrong. Then that means exactly what you're saying. I agree with. So Omega and Grogu are basically the two opposite sides of the project, kind of. Not the same project, because Grogu looks like is Gideon's side project.
Yeah.
But Gideon wants the wants the actual
From Grogu to
from
himself.
Grogu to himself.
Yeah.
And he just trusts that he himself as a host can take it.
Yeah.
And Palpatine's like, I have the highest M count of anybody you've ever met.
I just need someone.
I need someone that I can
Yeah.
transfer this to, because I'm going to.
That's what
Yeah.
I think
we
it
need the
is.
host.
Exactly.
That's what I think it is.
We need a
Yeah.
suitable host, and she's literally a clone.
Mm-hmm.
So if she can take it, it's not that we put it in her; it's that we use her DNA as the basis of the new batch of
Yeah.
clones, which are all Palpatine, her
Right.
and Palpatine
Yeah.
mixed together. So like she is the Django.
Yeah.
What Django is to all the
Sorry.
to all the like trained clones, she is to the batch of Palpatines, which we've always said from the beginning. It's interesting that she's already naturally got like the lighter hair color. Might even say she looks like a young Palpatine. Oh, that's insulting to Omega. So you look like a young Palpatine. But if you look at any like the novels or anything that have like pictures of young Palpatine, she's kind of got like a similar hairdo.
Yeah.
She's
Yeah.
not saying that she already is related to Palpatine, but it kind of makes sense. Like, oh, he looks at her and he's like, you could be my daughter.
Yeah.
I will clone you.
Yeah.
So it's
interesting.
interesting though, thinking of Grogu. They need the blood from Grogu for the power, like to.
It seems that,
use
and
the
to
Force
remind me
abilities.
too, so Moff's making the clones of himself, trying to get this M count to transfer over.
That's
Is
what I'm
he- is he
thinking.
trying to get
Grogu's
the-
not part of the
Is he
Emperor's
waiting
plan.
for
Yeah.
a clone of himself to be like tested and be like take and be a successful trial of getting the M count over before he just does it on himself? He's doing it on the clones of himself to try and do that.
I don't know if we know you. Yeah, you
Is
mean
that what he was his goal was?
What
I'm
was
trying
the
to remember
goal of-
exactly with his clones.
I think he was he was trying to
He
make
was
force sensitive
before doing it
versions
to
of
before doing it to himself, and trying to get the M count basically in like for himself. It's almost like he was testing it and trying it on clnes of himself, and then once he had a successful trial, he was gonna do it on himself.
I think
Is
so.
that right?
I think
Okay.
that's it.
That's what I thought.
Yeah. And he was I think that's exactly what he was. I love that Moff
In the meantime,
also,
let's also just make amazing Mandalorian.
I was just say I love
Yeah.
that Moff is just
Absolutely.
if there's one thing we know about Moff Gideon, he's just he's
your
he is
trinkets, and then he goes and gets all the
Yeah.
trinkets.
oh your trinkets. He's a stealer of culture. Like he's like
Yeah.
oh, Mandalorians, you have this cool thing. I'm gonna take that. I'm having Mandalorian
yeah.
thing. Oh, I kind of like how Maul's had like little horns on it. I'm gonna do that
I'm gonna
little
do
horn
that.
thing on mine. Grogu, you can use the Force. That'll be mine now.
But Vader
I'm
went
gonna
with the
try
all
this.
black. I think I'll do that.
Like the black shiny.
I'll do that.
Yep.
And then I love that like every time though that like the other members of like the Imperial Remnant come, he has to push all of his toys in the closet and like close it. He's like, nope. Yes, of course, I'm just serving the Emperor and all this. And then like, what is that? And he rips off his fake mustache. He's got on all these different disguises.
yeah.
I am Moff Sidious. Gideon. Yes,
I had an interesting
It's-
thought.
it's
How much time
crazy.
do we have?
We got enough for an interesting thought.
Curtis. Yeah, because mine
How
that.
interesting we
I'm
thought.
not gonna go
about
that
you.
deep.
Well, this is the
Isn't
part
it-
of the podcast where we just start doing random accents. Just
Isn't it
like-
interesting that no, we're talking on, so we're pretty heavy here, Bad Batch. Mando, we're talking about the scientific side of creating
Yeah.
force sensitive. And it's all about the math. It's all about the
Yep.
numbers. It's all about the M count.
Uh-huh.
Get the M count right, and you got force sensitive. Meanwhile, the entire last season of Ahsoka
Yeah,
was the opposite.
exactly.
Yeah.
There is nothing that makes you a Jedi inside.
Yeah.
You can become
Exactly. Yep.
you can become that regardless of your DNA.
Yeah.
Do you think that was intentional that he was saying on one side the dark side believes that you can just make a
You
Jedi
can make it.
with science and it's Frankenstein. You can make one. And the light side, or at least
I
Ahsoka
do
is saying
think so.
I
Yeah.
a
definitely think it
Jedi is not the physical, it's the spiritual. It's the part of
It's
you
who
that
you are. Yeah.
that
It's a way of
decides what
life,
I'm
not-
going to be.
Yeah.
Not, and that's the story of
Yep.
Rey, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think this is accidental?
I do
No.
think it's. I think it's
I think it's
contrasting the dark and the light. Like you're saying, the dark side is Frankenstein. It's let's just mix and mash and
Put the
create
pieces
whatever
together
we can.
and we get
Yeah.
the
and
math
then we'll-
right. We get
and then
a
we'll get this source, and then we'll
it
make
doesn't
them
work.
do whatever we want.
doesn't work.
And
Yep.
then Ahsoka is showing the light side of things of what a Jedi really is and what they stand for is not the life
blood.
itself. It's
Yeah.
your way of life.
Your
It's
choices,
who
the things
you are,
you choose.
choices. Yeah.
And that's the story of Rey, right?
Yeah.
It's not the blood that
Yeah.
makes her. It's the choices that we make.
Yeah.
And I'm
Definitely.
wondering if that's a Filoni thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's also a
don't know.
George. I think it's
seems like it
also
might be.
also a George
I
thing.
think it is.
I think it's funny because the whole topic of midichlorians, going back to the prequels when they're really starting to talk about midichlorians, and then obviously the cultural, there was like a backlash to it, and I get it. Like I was even like,
That takes away some of
why
the.
are we trying to explain
mystery?
something that's mystical and make it scientific? But I do think now coming around and seeing the full circle, I think George was like, no, it's both of like and he's actually said this in interviews, like, he's compared, and this ties into Ahsoka and then ties into what we're talking about here with Bad Batch and how the dark side in the Empire is completely missing the spiritual side of it. The George has claimed that, like, you know, in his eyes, like the Force or training and using the Force is like martial arts.
Mm-hmm.
There are, if you really want to dedicate yourself to training and you want to put in the time and effort and have the most serious mind and commitment, you will be able to accomplish some level of being
Yeah.
able to do martial arts.
You're
I
not
think of
gonna
it.
be
I
a-
think of it. Kobe Shaq.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
You're not going to be a LeBron or
You're
Kobe.
not. Yeah.
You're going to.
There's.
But
Well, like Kobe has skills, but he'll never be Shaq.
Yeah.
He doesn't have
Yeah.
that.
yeah.
Exactly. There's.
he's in that direction.
Yeah.
But his immense work took him to the point where they were.
If
Yeah.
you want to,
Yeah,
and then in Filoni and what they've done with Ahsoka made it very clear that, like, yes, that is all that is true, and also ability matters as to
Why Anakin
That's right.
was
as to how
so
natural he'll be
raw,
at it,
That's
as to
right.
how
power and strength.
that you can train as hard as you want. Like literally use the just Jedi to Jedi analogy of Sabine versus Anakin. Sabine can train as hard as she wants. Anakin is the LeBron James of like he has this.
She'll never be as
natural
strong
abilities.
as Anakin pod racing because he was just natural.
he
He
had
has
that.
these natural
Mhm.
abilities and also trained like LeBron trained extremely hard and also has these God-given
When you
natural
connect those things
insane
up, it
abilities
puts
that
you at
leads
a-
to
Yeah.
Yeah.
heights that you could never achieve, or even the average person who devotes their entire life to training at basketball. You don't have the same threshold, or you don't have the same.
You don't have the
Man,
same cap.
I read that
Yeah.
about chess recently that your IQ is it's limiting your chess max, kind of. Your IQ limits the max. You don't know where the max is. But we know that people of a certain IQ can only reach a certain
Yeah.
level in chess. But you can get a very high level. You could surpass someone with a higher IQ just by work.
Yeah.
But there is a line there
Interesting.
where work and work and work and work, you can't see the game far enough ahead because your IQ is limited.
Interesting, yeah.
But people of a higher IQ, they'd be terrible at chess but if they devote themselves to it,
They
Yeah.
could have a higher cap.
they could
basically.
become
Yeah.
That's the thing.
could
So
become Anakin.
tying it back into Bad
They
Batch.
become Anakin.
Yeah, tying into Bad Batch.
dark
It feels
side.
like the dark side is all on the.
Science.
You gotta
If
get-
we
get
get
the science right,
genetics,
then
we've
it's
got
over.
it. Like, yeah,
Right.
that's it.
Yeah.
And I love the twisted Frankenstein lab type of Dr. Hemlock being this like Dr. Frankenstein, like
That's
he's
exactly what it is.
actually getting like, if we just have the right parts, it's all going to work. But they're not. There's nothing. You look at the differences of this is achieve the M count, do this, then we'll have the power, and then it's going to go great. On the
Mhm.
other side, you have Yoda going like sitting down and like teaching you actual like
Not size matters.
morality lessons of not
That's
just of like
Yeah,
but how to
spiritual
use
side.
this. Well, how do you train your mind? How do you? And obviously, Palpatine is one of the most powerful, if not the most powerful beings, out there. But that doesn't mean that he's that when he's looking at this in the lens of how do we get more of me or more of this, that he's looking at it in that lens. He's looking at it in the greed power of the what's the quick way to obtain this, and it's if we get the pieces, then we got it.
Right.
And I love that I love that the order of these shows coming out we finished with the Ahsoka stuff and then we jump right into this, whether intentional or not, as far as the timing of those two things, which it very well could be. It's great just seeing the vast contrast of the way that the light
It's a
side
dark
and
and the light.
Ahsoka and
It's-
everybody
Yeah, it
is
is.
approaching this versus we are literally in a dark lab. We're literally mad scientists
Yeah.
doing this, kidnapping children and keeping them in cages and doing all this stuff, just to achieve the scientific achievement without it all being the, what are the consequences of this?
Yeah.
Right.
I think it also makes more sense too as to why they decided to start weeding out all the clones.
Mhm.
Why the Empire is just like, why would you get rid of these clones that were actually known as great soldiers
Right.
to
Yeah.
replace them with, the stormtroopers who are known as not as
Mhm.
great of soldiers?
Yeah.
Why are you doing that? And it is in some ways because they want to regather what they've got to try to. Palpatine's trying to regather these clones
It's all
to
about
continue
Mhm.
figuring out. Okay, forget the war. Forget like we got control. We
Mhm.
don't need our best troops out there. Get the clones back in so that we can start working on this plan. He doesn't
Mhm.
want them just out there,
Yeah.
which is I was thinking about that watching the episode. I'm like, this is part of why they're out just regathering all the clones, because this is
working on the
part of
next
why
phase.
they shifted towards getting rid of them and continuing just with the regular
Yeah.
people who
Yeah.
want to sign up for the Empire.
I as a character, I don't agree with him. I love Dr. Hemlock as a
Oh,
character.
he's so great.
Oh.
He's such a great villain.
The
great.
soft-spoken power, and Thrawn has that vibe too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very. Don't need to yell. Everything's under
Yes,
control.
Very
yeah.
under control. There's
Do
a
you think you
scariness to
changed
that
the
versus
fate?
the explosiveness.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
great.
What were you say?
It's great.
It just says, "Do you think you changed his fate?" Talking about the creature.
I love it. I don't want, selfishly, because I want more stories with him. I don't want him to necessarily die soon or anything like that in the show. But it would
Yeah.
be
I
funny.
think he'll make it to the end.
I hope
The end
he
of the
does.
show, or
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
I
I think
so.
he'll make it to the end of the show. I honestly wouldn't be surprised even if he survives.
Beyond. Yeah.
Yeah,
Because and just continues.
he's a great
in this-
character.
in the shadows.
Yeah.
And then they add him to the books and things. Whether
Mhm.
I would read
a
some
different
books for
medium,
sure.
not in Bad Batch, but they
Yeah.
continue his character.
Yeah.
Wouldn't
He
wouldn't
did-
surprise me.
if he
But
were
I
to
mean,
die-
he could die, but
If he were to die, it would be great if it was one of these just clones gone wrong, like yeah. Then we get our Jeff Goldblum Jurassic Park moment of we spent all this time wondering if we could. We just wonder if we should. Like a Palpatine clone, just grab.
yeah.
And they're like, terminate him. Palpatine's like, terminate me. And all the Palpatines.
Yeah,
wake
it
up
does-
and
I-
just, kill
Oh,
him.
yeah,
I'm
zombie
waiting
fighting
for the
Frankenstein.
moment we get back in that room and we see what's being made back there.
Oh
I'm
man.
curious to see
We're
what's
going
back
to.
there.
Well, I think we'll see it.
Yeah, they teased it.
They teased it,
Teased
so.
it. We're only 3 episodes in. We just watched the premiere, the 3-episode premiere of 16 episodes.
There's a lot to
wait.
go.
Oh, speaking of which, before we get out of here, because I saw this, there's a couple of things that have happened between our last podcast. Did we even talk about on here the Mandalorian and Grogu being a movie?
Mandalorian and Grogu.
No.
Also, that being the official title,
Yeah.
Yep.
which is great. They're
Interesting.
just get to the point, I guess.
I saw
The
someone
Mandalorian
posting
The
and
Grogolorian.
I
It's
saw
like
some-
the Brangelina. It's all that's.
I saw people
Grogolorian.
posting and saying,
Exactly.
"What's with Star Wars and them just naming it based on everything they're making is just the character Obi-Wan Kenobi, Ahsoka, Boba
How
Fett,
dare they call it what it is?
Mandalorian,
Because the
Mandalorian and Grogu."
The one
It's
time
like,
they've actually
they're not
ventured,
coming up
the one time they actually, for show purposes, ventured out and was like, we'll add a little flair to it. We'll go the book
of Boba Fett.
But then they
Boom.
wrote themselves in the corner we did nothing about a book.
We tried to
here.
read that into it.
Yeah, we're
oh,
like,
it's going to
what
be
the fuck?
chapters.
And
It
then they're
was.
It
Yeah,
was.
that
That's
was
it.
It was
And that's it.
metaphorical, but it wasn't
I
really.
was just
And
imagining
sometimes in books we jump to other characters.
Has anybody ever done this? We need to do it. Has anybody done like a 1970s sitcom trailer of Grogu and Mando? Like,
they need to. Totally.
come and knock on our door, and it's Grogu.
or give us a
A
full,
full
give us
house. A full house
It is,
edit
the
of
intro.
Grogu Mando.
Everywhere you look.
It cuts to him and he's just
everywhere
burping
you
up his
look.
blue cookies, his blue milk. Ooh.
I'm doing it.
Everywhere you
I'm doing it.
I need
Grogu's
to
in the
see it now.
classroom.
You
It's
can
in
do
the
it. Just
classroom.
take footage.
We didn't talk on the podcast that we'll do it
Hilarious.
quickly, but the tragic, sad passing of Carl Weathers.
I know.
Yeah.
That was obviously
So sad.
as people who have watched Carl Weathers, not just in his recent years of doing all the stuff with Star Wars, but obviously is just huge fans of him growing
Yep.
up and everything. Very sad to hear about that. And then
Yeah.
I have this interesting news. Did you see that this was posted yesterday?
Acolyte.
Reports are that the Acolyte will reportedly release on June 5th,
Wow.
coming sooner than we expected.
Oh,
Yeah.
I would have guessed August or
man.
something.
Well, they did
Like
the
a month
same
after
thing for
the
Bad
month
Batch.
after the end of Bad Batch. I think
Yep.
is
They
what
did
they're
the
saying.
same thing with Bad Batch. They announced the date like a month ago,
Mhm.
and they're like, "Bad Batch coming," And
Right.
we're like, "Well, that's
That's
next
a month,
month. Let's
right?
go." Yeah.
That
I
means
love it.
Skeleton Crew is going to be in the fall? Is that what we're talking about?
Skeleton Crew, I think, would be.
Did they already-
probably-
Did they
haven't said
announce
yet.
the dates too? They announced the dates of Mando and Grogu.
They announced that it was coming. They announced the year.
Like, yeah, it was.
Uh,
yeah.
Right, that it's the same year. There's a May release and a
That's right.
for 2026. There's a May
Okay.
release and a. There's 2026. They said they're
May
starting
and
to
December.
Film, they're filming that movie starting this June.
Yeah,
That's-
maybe that's what I saw.
Wow.
The date of June of yeah.
And then lastly, I saw this is funny. You guys will like this as sports fans, but it's been in the NBA circles. This has very specific to any sports fans who are watching, but there's been a lot of people online that have been making these like memes or these funny things about Doc Rivers lately has been kind of making like these kind of almost like excuses or like these where like, oh yeah, I knew this situation was gonna be. I knew
like
that
coming
this.
in, we're not
He's
not
defending a
killing
lot
him.
of his like past moves.
Yeah.
And they were talking about like some trades he's had where he had to trade. Again, this is very NBA specific, but like they traded Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who's now become like a
Now,
top 5 player in the
right.
NBA, to do this move for Paul George and stuff back then. And he's saying like now like, oh yeah, I knew that he was gonna be this. I knew they were gonna do that. But it was just, and this connects to Star Wars because I saw someone post this picture of Doc Rivers, and it's Doc Rivers says Doc Rivers says he warned the Jedi about about Emperor Palpatine. I told Anakin, something's off about that guy. nobody gains that much power in the Galactic Senate that fast without something shady going on. I just had a feeling he was the Sith Lord. Yeah, I told Anakin. I told him. There's something off about that guy. So
That's
I thought
so
that was hilarious.
funny.
I read that.
It's so great.
I told
Somebody's in
Anakin
both.
there's
Yeah,
something off
that's
about that
awesome.
guy.
Yeah.
I thought that was funny.
That's hilarious.
But
good.
Bad Batch, loving it. So glad
Bad
it's
Batch.
back.
Great.
I love Bad Batch. And
It's great.
It's one of my favorite things right now in the world.
I love it. In
No,
the
it is.
world.
In the world.
I love it.
It is good.
Are we back
Omega's
on?
great.
Are we back Thursday mornings now? Going
Thursday mornings?
back.
everywhere you look. Star Wars guys.
Everywhere.
We're back. All right.
Yeah, we're back. Our episode reviews, our deep dives.
Yep.
We're ready for it. So,
Deep dives.
if you made it this far, thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks for tuning in. As always, drop your comments. Let us know some of your favorite moments. What are you looking forward to in Bad Batch? Let us know some predictions you maybe have with Omega, where her place in all of this is going to land, and any speculation or whatever. Let us know what you like and what you're looking forward to. What shows maybe you're looking forward to Acolyte coming out and the movie announcements. We got a lot of exciting news, and it's been nice to get back to a Star Wars show because we had such a long run of something going
Mhm.
on. And then we had a little break, but we're back with Bad
I
Batch.
didn't know who
so
I was there for a moment.
It's
I almost just started talking like Sid the whole time while I was gone.
Sorry,
I
Goggles.
didn't know what we
Yeah.
was doing.
Sorry
But-
to hear about Goggles.
Goggles.
Hey, what you doing, Brown Eyes?
brown eyes.
Why are you calling me brown eyes? My eyes are hazel.
Yeah,
My eyes are the exact same color as every other clone.
That's what he said.
but
But they bigger.
anyway, there you have it. Sid, she's gone.
Sid is.
Yeah.
She's gone.
Sid was a little snake.
She was a rat.
I was
had
watching
to
the end of
do it.
season 2, and I forgot. I mean, she already is turning on them, and they're realizing like, oh, Sid doesn't have our best interest at heart. And then at the very end, she's like, sorry about Goggles. And then they're talking to her, and they're like, like signs are going off, and like, is that the Empire? I had to.
I had to. Also, can I
The
say
Wrecker's looking at her like,
You betray
that's
us
true.
"Are you serious?"
Again, you're the worst,
Are you
and to the
serious?
worst people. I want to
Grabs
say
her by
too
the
before,
neck.
Yeah.
before we wrap it up, that recap was fantastic
It was great.
Yeah,
of the
it was
previous
great.
season at the beginning of episode 1. I was like, I was getting emotional just watching the
I
recap
know.
and tech and
I know.
even
it.
just the dialogue overlapping with what you're watching. I'm like,
I
this
don't think
recap
that
was
I
great.
survived.
But-
That's tech falling right there.
Anyway, there you have it. Star Wars guys, we're back. We're ready and excited to dive into Bad Batch. We'll catch you guys in the next one. If you made it this far, don't forget to like, subscribe, and smash the notification bell.
What are
We'll
we
catch you guys next
doing?
time. And as always, may the Force be with you.
The dark side of the Force is a pathway to many abilities some consider to be
Too many
unnatural.
abilities.
I got your package, didn't I?
I just try to go
Dark side is
crazier
a
with
pathway